This is Montana This Morning.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Montana This Morning at 5 a.m. I'm Augusta McDonald. Thank you, as always, for starting your day with us. The countdown to Christmas may be on, and so is the countdown to the 68th session of the Montana Legislature. Lawmakers will convene right after the new year, and several of the bills they'll be considering impact Montana's LGBTQ community. This happening at a time when the community tells me across the state their visibility and comfort is growing.
My lips just aren't sitting how I want them to.
Anita is a familiar face around the state.
Depending on how distracted I get, it can take me an hour and a half to 3 hours to get ready, just kind of depending on everything going on. And if I'm chit-chatting or just power painting, as I call it, you're just like, it's time, and you're excited to get to the show and perform for everyone.
A performance that means more than just a great show.
To be providing a safe space on top of a creative space for them, but a safe space for the audience.
Drag shows are booming in popularity. There were just a few shows a year in Bozeman 3 years ago, and now
we're at like 30 shows a year, 50.
It's similar in other cities. While members of the LGBTQ community in the state take a major step forward into the public arena.
When I think about what my election means, yes, there's the historic having a trans woman in the legislature for the first time, but it's also, personally, it's a reminder that I'm embraced by my community.
Zoe Zephyr says it will be valuable to have trans people in the legislature. She and Missoula Representative S.J. Howell, who is non-binary, will both serve in their first session, in part to be a part of conversations about LGBTQ rights in Montana.
We know the effect that these bills have, whether they pass or not. When these bills come forward, they harm my community. They put fear into kids when their healthcare may be taken away, when a young trans kid wants to play sports with their friends. It's hard on the community.
A contentious 2021 legislative session saw a bill seeking to block transgender women from playing in collegiate athletics blocked by the Supreme Court in a ruling this fall.
We also saw a couple passed by one vote, and I remember thinking I could change that heart. Maybe if they knew a trans person and talked to me.
This session, lawmakers anticipate returning to these discussions about how LGBTQ people are recognized and received in society. Columbia Falls Representative Braxton Mitchell is working on a bill that will prohibit kids from attending drag shows. He says he became concerned after hearing about reading events at Zoo Montana that drew protests.
Yeah, so my biggest thing is, children aren't allowed to be at strip clubs. They're not allowed to be at, any type of sexually oriented business. And you're seeing now in more recent years, a lot of these drag performances and shows, whatever you want to call them, are turning into a very sexual event. And I don't think that's something that children should be around.
Although the language isn't finalized yet, the bill would seek to regulate events at publicly funded facilities like schools and libraries. Other draft legislation proposed for the session includes efforts to modify access to information about sex and sexuality.
That would specifically remove and censor different pieces of education or curriculum, or even what books are available in the library.
Similar legislation made its rounds through other state legislatures in 2021 and 22. A new national report by nonprofit research group PEN America has found books were banned 2,532 times in public schools across the U.S. in the past 2 years. 41% of those banned included LGBTQ themes or characters.
We are the township.
The legislature kicks off January 3rd in Helena. On December 15th, LGBTQ suicide prevention group The Trevor Project published suicide risk data for 2022 for Montana, showing 55% of LGBTQ youth in the state seriously considered suicide in the past year, and 13% attempted suicide. 50% were physically threatened or harmed based on sexual orientation or gender identity. LGBTQ youth in Montana also reported whether recent politics negatively impacted their well-being. 11% said never, 47% said sometimes, and 42% said a lot. Switching over now to some weather headlines. The cold temperatures are here, and if you're leaving town for the holidays, you need to make sure to protect your home from burst pipes and furnace failure. We spoke to the owner of a local carpet restoration business who deals with water damage from pipes all winter long. He says turning the thermostat down to 50 while you're gone is too low this time of year. And before you leave, it might be a good idea to replace batteries in your thermostats.
Most thermostats, when the battery dies, and it seems to only die when you go on vacation this time of year, and it will shut the furnace off. We have too many clients that every year this happens, they turn the thermostat down to 50, not realizing that inside here is 50, but they forget about those exterior walls when it's minus 20 outside.
Experts suggest staying up to date on maintenance to avoid any issues while your home appliances may be working harder than usual. Definitely saw that this week. It was really hard to keep our place warm.
Yeah, you're gonna have a hard time
turning up the thermostat.
Hard time this week. Are you ready? Boy, so the coldest air of the year coming in. It's going to get brutal out there, and this is what we're looking at. If it hasn't kicked in yet, we've got warnings and advisories for the wind chill that will be kicking in. Here in our area alone, around Billings, could get to 45 below zero with the wind chill. So we got some dangerous temperatures to talk about. We'll do it all with the main forecast coming up. Right now here in Billings, we're sitting at 1, feels like 1, so the wind chill really hadn't kicked in yet because the winds are calm, 3 miles an hour right now. Temperatures across the area, though, we do have some spots below zero, 6 below in Miles City, 2 below in Forsyth. We're at -1 in Broadus. On the flip side, though, we're at 4 in Red Lodge. We've got 4 in Cody and 3 in Sheridan right now. Highs today, some of us may have already hit it. We're staying in the single digits for the most part, maybe some teens and 20s off to our west-southwest. But get ready, the coldest air hasn't even gotten here yet. We'll tell you about that and the possibility we could see some snow on top of that as well.
All righty, thank you, Miller. Arctic, they're saying.
Very,
Arctic.
yeah, that's the word, Arctic.
That just sounds cold.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? We'll be saying that a lot this week.
Okay, we'll check back with Miller in a few. And also happening today, the January 6th committee will hold a public meeting, likely the final one, about the 2021 insurrection. The panel will consider whether to refer individuals to the Justice Department for potential prosecution, including former President Trump. CBS's Jared Hill brings us a preview.
In what's likely to be its final public meeting, the House January 6th committee is expected to formally adopt its final report and vote on possible criminal referrals. It concludes the panel's months-long probe that included a series of bombshell hearings with former White House officials examining the events surrounding the U.S. Capitol riot and what role former President Trump and his supporters played.
We want to focus on those for which we believe there's the strongest evidence.
Committee member Adam Schiff told CNN Sunday he believes Trump should face prosecution.
I think that the evidence is there that Donald Trump committed criminal offenses in connection with his efforts to overturn the election.
The former president lashed out against Schiff on his Truth Social platform, and he slammed the House panel as the, quote, highly partisan, unselect committee.
I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
Trump announced another presidential run last month. Days later, Attorney General Merrick Garland appointed special counsel Jack Smith to oversee the criminal investigations into the former president's handling of classified material, as well as what happened on January 6th.
Such an appointment underscores the department's commitment to both independence and accountability in particularly sensitive matters.
A committee aide says after today's public meeting, the panel is expected to release an executive summary of the report and additional information about witnesses. Jared Hill, CBS News, New York.
Good news this morning for Christmas time travelers. If you're headed on the road, gas prices keep falling. The average for a gallon in Montana is $3.04 right now and just $2.99 in Yellowstone County. Nationwide, costs are now down more than 55 cents from a month ago and still below prices from this time last year. Gas Buddy predicts prices could fall below $3 nationwide by the end of the year. Porch pirates are cashing in on things you buy online. A new report estimates porch pirates, that's a tongue twister, stole about $260 million in delivered packages this year. That's well above the estimate of $210 million made at the start of 2022. Experts say part of the reason for the increase is more people are returning to the office. It's a good idea to sign up for text alerts or emails letting you know when packages are set to arrive and when they're actually delivered. On the congressional agenda this week, funding the government into late next year. The discussion will be important for parents because, as reporter Joe St. George explains, there's an outside chance a deal could include the return of an expanded child tax credit.
Well, if you're a football fan like me, this time of year is exciting. The college football playoffs, the NFL playoffs are on the horizon. It's a time of year where a Hail Mary pass may decide a game. Speaking of Hail Marys, here on Capitol Hill, lawmakers are trying to throw a Hail Mary too, not involving football, but involving child tax credits. Parents, you may want to listen up. Specifically, we're talking about the expanded child tax credit. You likely remember it. It existed in 2021, but when the calendar flipped to 2022, it went away over concerns by some on Capitol Hill that it may have been too generous and was causing inflation. The benefit gave $250 per child each month to qualifying parents. Parents got $300 a month per child if the child was under the age of 6. Studies show that child poverty was cut in half last year as a result. The numbers are not out yet for this year, but many expect child poverty to rise because the benefit went away. Here's where the Hail Mary comes in as lawmakers scramble to try and pass a federal budget before the new year. Democrats and Republicans are trying to see if they can reinstate that expanded child tax credit one more time. This is where things stand. There are basically 3 groups of lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Group 1 wants the old child tax credit back with no changes. Group 2 doesn't want the benefit back at all. They're concerned over costs. Group 3 wants changes to the expanded child tax credit to improve it. That group consists of Democrats and Republicans, which is why there's a slim chance this passes. One big sticking point, a work requirement. Some don't want this benefit going to Americans who aren't working. Another point of contention, income thresholds. Last time, a couple making under $150,000 qualified. Some say that's too much. All of this is expected to be decided this week, perhaps today. The new Congress takes over on January 3rd. What's the odds this happens? Well, let's just say I'm a Browns fan. This has a better chance of passing than the Browns do of making the playoffs this year, but it still has a long way to go. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
Thank you, Joe. And a group of Lockwood parents is working towards forming a Girl Scout troop inside the Boy Scouts of America program in their area. 5 years ago, the organization changed the rules, allowing girls to participate. Since then, thousands of girls have joined in Montana and all over the country, including 3 all-girl troops right here in Billings. Lockwood doesn't have one yet, but many parents believe plenty of kids would be interested.
Scouting has actually always had girls within the last 20, 30 years in some degree worldwide. It's just taken some time for the United States to catch up.
In summer camp, you also get to do these really fun things, like you even get to hold a pocket knife, you get a whittling chip.
BSA requires girls to have their own troops separate from the boys. The scout you just heard from lives in Lockwood and has to travel outside of her neighborhood right now to participate. Good news for anybody trying to get a letter to the North Pole. Santa has his own mailbox right here in downtown Billings. It's in front of Big Dipper Ice Cream on 1st Avenue North and Broadway. These wish lists get it right to the big man himself. Of course, Santa is a busy man making his lists, checking them twice, but he still finds time to respond to a few lucky kids.
The letters that we're getting are coming right from the North Pole. So it is hand stamped, it is postmarked from the North Pole, their names are on it, their addresses are on it. I mean, it is legit.
Again, the mailbox is in front of Big Dipper Ice Cream on 1st Avenue North and Broadway.